So let's talk about dreams. There's this wild new theory out there, and it asks a simple question. What if your dreams are actually a report? Like a literal report on the emotional pressures building up inside your brain.
You've been there, right? You wake up and just think, where in the world did that come from? We all have. So let's take this one really strange dream that someone actually had, and by the end of this, I think we can crack the code.
Okay, so let's get into this dream puzzle. And trust me, this one has it all. We're talking heavy construction, a brand new house, and then suddenly this mysterious water shortage that threatens the whole thing. It sounds totally random, right? But stick with me here, it's gonna make sense.
So the dream kicks off with a pretty specific job. The dreamer is right there next to this big, official-looking government building, and their task is to crush these old, solid concrete blocks into tiny, manageable pieces.
And you can feel this real sense of purpose here, you know? It's not just about destruction. They're taking these fragments, piece by piece, and carrying them over to help build something totally new. Maybe, just maybe, it's their own future home.
Just when things are moving along, bam, a crisis. They suddenly need a ton of water, but when they look at the pressure gauge, it's flat on zero, nothing. Even the emergency pipes, the ones for firefighting, are bone dry.
So what's the deal here? What could possibly connect crushed concrete, a new house, and water pipes with zero pressure? I mean, on the surface, it feels like a total jumble of random images. But this new theory, it's called the Brain Kinematics Model, suggests it's not random at all. In fact, it might just come down to physics.
Okay, to crack the code of that dream, we first have to get our heads around a really cool concept, this idea that our daily experiences leave behind this invisible residue. Think of it like emotional leftovers, just hanging out inside our brains.
The theory has a name for these leftovers: residual strains. Now imagine every little thing that happens during your day. A weird comment from a colleague, a deadline that's creeping up. It's like someone plucking a tiny guitar string in your brain. So by the end of the day, your mind is still kind of humming with all these leftover vibrations.
And here's the thing, these little strains don't just disappear. If they share a theme, like stress about a big project, they start to clump together, they accumulate. And according to this theory, they literally gather in one spot, building up into these concentrated peaks of emotional energy, what they call hills of emotion.
But here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just that these hills form, it's where they form. Because the theory says their physical location inside your brain can actually predict the exact kind of dream you're about to have.
Okay, so for example, let's take your prefrontal cortex. That's kind of like the CEO of your brain, right? It handles all the planning, the big decisions, the responsibility. So if a hill of emotion tied to work stress builds up right there, you might have one of those classic anxiety dreams, showing up for an exam you didn't study for, or losing some super important documents.
Or let's say the strain builds up somewhere else, like in your amygdala. That's your brain's primal fear and reward center. Well, a buildup there could trigger much more visceral, raw dreams. We're talking about being chased or seeing fires and floods. It's like a direct line from that raw physical emotion to a powerful dream image.
So what this theory is really proposing is a literal map of our dreams. You can see it here. Depending on where that strain is concentrated, whether it's the hippocampus dealing with old memories or the occipital cortex with visual stuff, it seems to translate directly into the specific symbols and feelings we get in our dreams. It's pretty wild.
All right, so this brings us to the big question, the million-dollar question, really. How does a physical pressure, this so-called hill of emotion, actually turn into a picture in your dream? How do you get from a feeling of pressure to an image of a locked door or a raging flood?
Well, the theory lays out this neat 4-step process. Think of it like a little symbol factory. Step 1, these emotional hills build up during the day. Step 2, they get concentrated in a specific part of the brain. Step 3, while you're asleep, your brain gets to work trying to release that pressure, to rebalance things. And step 4, this is the really cool part. It packages all that raw energy into a symbol. It basically condenses the feeling into an image to make it manageable. Let me put it another way. The hill of emotion is that heavy, abstract feeling, like the pressure of an unfinished project. Your brain can't just file that away easily, so what does it do? It converts it into a concrete symbol, the image of a test you haven't studied for. That symbol is basically the emotional peak, but it's been made portable. It's something your brain can actually work with.
Okay, so now that we have the key, we have the decoder ring, let's go back to that bizarre dream about concrete and water and finally figure out what was going on.
First up, the crushed concrete.
Turns out, that wasn't random debris at all. It was a symbol for the dreamer's past work, all their old projects and accomplishments being broken down into smaller, valuable, and reusable parts.
And where was he taking all those pieces? To a new house being built. This symbolized a new project he was working on, maybe a new theory he was developing, or even a new version of himself that he was trying to build, using the fragments of his past as the foundation. Pretty cool, huh?
And that brings us to the water problem. Water, in dreams, is often a classic symbol for the flow of ideas, of creativity, of energy. So that pressure gauge, stuck on 0, that was the dream screaming out the dreamer's biggest anxiety. Am I going to run out of inspiration? Do I have enough creative juice to actually finish this new thing I've started?
I mean, this is a really powerful, compelling way to think about dreams, right? It connects them directly to the physics of the brain. But like any new scientific idea, we got to be good scientists. We have to put it on trial and look at both the good and the bad.
So, on the one hand, the big strength here is that it gives us a physical, almost mechanical basis for our emotional dream life. It's fascinating. The weakness? Well, that key concept, residual strain, is super hard to actually measure with our current tech. And you have to wonder, does the strain cause the emotion, or does the emotion create the strain? It's that classic chicken and egg problem, and we're going to need a lot more research to figure it out.
So, when you boil it all down, this theory is suggesting that your nightly dreams aren't just a bunch of random nonsense. They could be a highly symbolic report, like a daily readout showing you exactly where the pressures of your day have physically settled inside your brain.
And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If this is even partly true, what if your dreams are just a nightly weather map of your mind's emotional pressure points? What might your dreams be trying to tell you about the pressures you're carrying around, and where, inside your mind, they've decided to make their home?